Welcome back to the channel. RacerX here, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Mustang. And I've gotten so many questions about whether or not I really like this car. Do I regret buying it? Was it a huge mistake? Why don't I race it anymore? Well, today we're going to talk all about the Mustang, why I made the decision to go to the Mustang, and how I feel about now ultimately selling the Mustang in lieu of a new car for the channel. So today we'll talk all about this. If you guys are brand new to my channel, please do me a big gigantic favor, hit subscribe right over here in the corner, and off we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Just to give a little bit of context, because I do realize not everybody out there has been following me for years, but I started this channel back in, October of 2018, so going on 5 years now, and I started it with my Charger Hellcat named Excessive. 1,000+ horsepower, very consistent, very fast, always seemed to go out and just do all sorts of damage at the track in terms of race events. The car was just an absolute blast to drive. I talked all about the mods for the car. However, you guys actually didn't get to follow the journey as I modded that car. The car was already modded when I started this channel. And of course I did have the Challenger Scatpack out there as well. The Shaker, loved that car as well. Pretty light mods on that particular car. We did some wrap work on it, some intake work on it, but nothing super crazy with that car. But I did talk a lot about the mods, and I really enjoyed both of the Mopars I had for my channel. And as the Hellcat content started to sort of dry out, so to speak, lots of other people were putting out Hellcat content, I noticed a big dip in my channel, so I knew I had to do something new. So I went ahead and tried something entirely different, and I bought a Subaru WRX STI for the channel. Really, it was just meant to be a fun little daily, but I intended to make content with that, which proved to be a huge pain in the butt. I don't know what else to say about it. I was looking for a whole nother demographic to help the channel grow, and really all it did was just basically frustrate me, because as I tried to make videos, the 0 to 60 videos, all the stuff that you guys really like, I just got essentially a bunch of kids on my channel that told me I didn't know how to drive, but they would most definitely educate me because they've had 2 years of driving experience, and I just simply didn't know what I was doing, which is absolutely laughable to me. Obviously a lot of experience driving 6-speed manual cars. I wasn't willing to dump the clutch every single stop sign at 6,000 RPM and rip the clutch out of the car, so that meant I didn't know how to drive it. Some of the comments were absolutely laughable, and I essentially just kind of gave up on that whole thing, and it just wasn't really the type of attention I was looking for the channel. So that brings me to my next chapter. Now, I did like to go out and have fun in my Charger Hellcat. I went to meets. Sometimes we would go to little race events and things like that with that car. And when I would run up against other cars on the street in the Hellcat, there really weren't a whole lot of cars out there that scared me, with a few exceptions, and for good reason. Once in a while, you'd run up against a modded GTR. Those things are monsters, all-wheel drive, and they could be very formidable. Twin-turbo Lambos, stuff like that. Very fast cars. I just didn't get scared off by a whole lot in the Hellcat. However, one car that I would consistently lose to was twin-turbo Mustang GTs. Good gracious, there's something about when you strap a twin-turbo to a Mustang GT that makes it unbelievably formidable. And every time I would run up against a twin-turbo Mustang, it would absolutely wipe the floor with me. And I was just like, man, you know what? I've got to try something new for the channel. So I actually called Hellion. They were familiar with my channel. We worked out a sponsorship thing with those guys. They are fantastic to deal with. And what better platform to throw a Hellion twin turbo kit on, do something new and different for the channel, than a Mustang GT. So I went all in, bought a 2020 Mustang GT in blue, and went ahead and installed a Hellion twin turbo kit to it. Unfortunately, only 3 weeks after the build, I was driving in pouring rain, and the car went sideways on me and slammed into a wall at 70. It's one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever had in my life. It was very scary, and unfortunately, the car was totaled. Now, I actually showed the aftermath of that particular accident on my channel right after it happened, and as I mentioned, it was very, very scary. And of course, in my comments section, you had a fair amount of people jumping on there. Oh, RacerX is lying. He doesn't know how to drive. He was racing in the rain because he's stupid. And, people will be people, and I don't know why people are like that, and basically they just accuse me of lying, which is pretty funny because I was able to use my dash cam footage, show it to both the police and my insurance company, and they, of course, deemed that it was not my fault. They could vouch validate that. My loss was covered 100% by my insurance company, luckily. However, the turbo kit off of that car needed to come off. So we took the turbo kit off of it. Most of the turbo kit was perfectly fine, and I was able to actually secure another car, this particular car, this red car, and we were able to bolt the turbo kit right back up to the red car. Now, I'm simplifying it a little bit. Hellion had to manufacture a few parts special for me so that we could get it all bolted up, and the guys at Gearheads Performance in Mansfield were nice enough to kind of get the car set up for me again, a new car, and that's actually who I bought the car from, was the owner of Gearheads, and this actually used to be Demonology's old car, for those of you guys that follow him. And so now all of a sudden we have a red twin turbo Mustang to try and make new content with. Now, this car seemed to be a perfect fit for what I wanted to do with it. And Travis, the owner of Gearheads, where I had my twin turbo kit installed the first time, just had this car sitting up there. And I couldn't find any Mustang GTs on the lots. It was one of those weird times out there with COVID happening and all the other stuff happening. They just weren't producing any cars. And this thing already had a bunch of drag race goodies on it. It had the Viking shocks. It's lowered an inch, Ford Racing drive shaft, Ford Racing axles, lockout kit, all that good stuff. You can see I went ahead and added the stripe to it. It also had the Weld Racing wheels, which you can see kind of sitting up here as well, that are not on the car currently. But it just made sense. If I was going to put a twin turbo kit on a car, base Mustang GT, only 2,000 miles on it, this is the one to buy. So that basically brings us full circle. Both Mopars have been sold for a little while now. Of course, the WRX gone. And then, of course, the blue Mustang we know met its fate. And now we have just the red Mustang in terms of flagship cars for my channel. Now, I've been developing lots of plans in the background for a long time. And my whole intent with basically going away from Mopar and trying to go the Mustang route was simply to grow my channel. My channel had become very stagnant. And when you do YouTube for a while, you do kind of realize you kind of hit these plateaus and you hit these peaks and valleys, all sorts of stuff happens, and my channel just simply wasn't growing. And I really wanted to do something different for the channel, and I realized just how many Mustang people were out there. Yes, I could have gone and bought a Shelby. However, I've had the most success on my channel with going with stuff that seems to be more relatable. Truth be told, when I would put out a Scat Pack video, it would get 3 or 4 times the views as most of my Hellcat content would. And I think it just comes from the car being more relatable, more people have it. And then when I would put out like RT content, when it came to Chargers or Challengers, those would get even more views than the Scat Pack would. So it's really weird how that works. So I went with the Mustang GT simply because I wanted to make, just have a car there to modify, do different things with it. That was a car that a lot of people had. And it did actually help the channel grow to a degree. Naturally, this move caused a lot of people to have questions, and most of those questions were pretty valid. And one question that I got a lot was, listen, RacerX, why in the world did you go away from Mopar? We always thought you were a Mopar guy. Listen, if you don't drive a Mopar, you're a traitor. I'm never going to follow you again, which is kind of laughable to me. And some comments, I saw them all, were pretty respectful, and others obviously very disrespectful, and a whole litany in between. And truth be told, guys, I do this YouTube thing because I have a passion for it, but also it's a source of income for me, and I'm always trying to grow my channel. And I grew up an all-around car enthusiast. I didn't grow up as just a Mopar guy. While I do love the Mopars, I think they're fun, they're fantastic cars, and I'm obviously looking to go back to Mopar yet again. I grew up liking all sorts of different cars, certainly imports. The McLaren F1 is my favorite car of all time, certainly a British car, but I grew up loving the Viper. I was always a vet guy. I've owned 5 vets, for those of you guys that don't know that. I have owned a lot of different cars in my past. I intend to own a lot of different cars in my future, and I really do pride myself on giving you guys content that is impartial and give you guys a vast array of content, and hopefully you guys like it. Another question that I get pretty frequently is, which is the faster of the two cars when you compare the Mustang GT to the modified Hellcat? And it's been proven. I did 60 to 130 tests for you guys, and the Mustang is by far the faster of the two cars, and that is only at 12.5 pounds of boost. Mind you, these turbos will probably flow, 27, 30 pounds. I mean, the car's probably capable of making, 13 or 1400 horsepower on this particular setup. Of course, I had it turned down to protect the motor and the trans, but both cars basically making 900 wheel horsepower. The Mustang is 600 pounds lighter. It's more aerodynamic, much smaller profile. So it is going to be the faster of the two cars on the highway. And of course, we also have the added aid of a 10-speed version versus an 8-speed. So that really kind of answers the question, which one is faster from a roll? We already know the Mustang. It is the king of roll racing. As I mentioned, I tried so many times to roll race with twin turbo Mustangs in my Hellcat, and I did not do all that well against those. To prove my point, I actually have an older video. It's been out on my channel for a little while now, but it's with my good buddy Rob, who used to own a 392, an SRT car, and he actually got a chance to ride in this car and drive it. Take a look at a couple of clips of that.
I'm a little bit dizzy. The faster you go, the harder it pulls. Yeah. So like when I kept expecting it to tail off, and not only did it not tail off, it was only pulling harder. And I looked down, and we were going
warp speed.
The difference is like the Hellcat still pulled hard up top, but this thing like just pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. You don't ever feel any kind of a tapering off.
Letdown, yeah.
Now, when it comes to drag racing the two cars, it was a bit of a role reversal, because while you would think, being the lighter car, this would be the faster of the two, it most definitely was not. The 60-foot on this car is like in the 1.8s. I haven't even been able to get it into the 1.7s, while on my Hellcat, that thing being a big 4,600-pound sedan would still run like 1.40 60 foots. And the car would actually run pretty consistently in the 9.6, 9.7 range with a best of 9.44. And the fastest I've ever been able to get this car to go is like a 9.97, but it was at over 150 mile an hour, like 152. So the car is trapping crazy speed, but it comes out of the hole so darn slow, which left me really frustrated when I was racing against cars like Hellcats or Shelby GT500s and things like that. And I realize part of it is because it has a smaller 5-liter engine, but the car just doesn't come out of the hole. Now, you could do things like put the car up on the 2-step. I know a lot of guys do that, but also I was told that tends to tear up the transmission. And for a car that I was daily driving, that just didn't make sense to do that. And also, you can put a stall converter in the car. Yes, I get that right here. I've actually got a stall converter from Circle D that I intended to put in, but due to kind of life circumstances and all the things that I was going through kind of leading up till now, just all the changes in life, stuff happens. I just didn't want to come out, you know, $2,500 or $3,000 to install the stall converter in the car and pick up a couple of tenths, because I just wasn't really racing the car that much anyway, and I had other plans for the channel. But yes, this car, when it comes to drag racing, left me pretty frustrated, which is why you didn't see me do a lot of drag racing in the car. All right, guys, verdict is in on the second pass. A really solid pass out of the car. It's still not 60-footing at all, which is kind of what I expected. We're like the 1.85, 60-foot range, and not a real good 60-foot, but the car just doesn't leave under boost. That's kind of what this car does. Stalled it up to about 2,300 RPM, and that's kind of what's killing us, because the 60-foot just isn't good. But the car did run a 10.2. It was actually a 10.21 at 148.77 mile an hour, and that's only on the second boost setting. Didn't want a 60 foot on that. Kind of a tough one, but he definitely got me. A car's fast, so we got to figure out how to get the 60 foot down on this thing. Another thing that frustrated me a little bit about the car was the fact that I don't really feel like the tune was ever 100% dialed in. Yes, I had many iterations on the tune and we did a little bit of revising. Of course, I did do some data logging and things like that. But there were several races where I would get out there and the car would kind of start bucking in the middle of the track. It would cut power. This happened at least 6 different times, one of which was actually versus my buddy Drag Times at a big event, one of Demonology's big events, where I was racing this car versus the Plaid. And right in the middle of the race, which looked to be a really good race, my car just basically cut all power before it came back into power. And by that time, of course, the Plaid was long gone. Oh, it shut off on me. It shut off on me. Oh, no. The car shut off on me. Another thing to consider is the fact that the Mustang GT was never intended to make 1,000+ horsepower. And while I've thrown all sorts of other mods at it, including drivetrain mods, suspension mods, things like that, to help the car hold together and perform as expected, you typically tend to find weak links in the car when you bump up the power this much. And this car was no exception. I didn't talk about it on a lot of videos, but for example, the fuel pumps in the car, right? From 4 Innovations, the main fuel pump went out, left me stranded all day one day, had to have the car towed, all sorts of good stuff. I did eventually get it fixed, but that was one piece of it. The bolts on the rear end, actually the bolts going into the diff, broke on me on 2 different occasions, and they are big, massive bolts. On 2 different occasions, those things broke, which is incredible to me. But once again, I got stranded 2 other times. And of course, those fixes were not all that easy or cheap. You wouldn't think so, but it did cost me a fair amount of money and the car was down. Now, the engine and the transmission have held together absolutely fantastic on this car. So I don't want to take anything away from the engine or transmission on this thing, but it didn't go without its growing pains. A couple other items of note when it comes to this particular car are that when you drive it, it's really loud on the inside, even more so than my Hellcat was. So when I'm trying to get you in-car footage, the car is just loud. It's really hard to hear anything that I'm saying in here, and I'm just cruising down the street, so let alone kind of getting on it and just listening to, listening to how loud this thing is on the inside. And with the seats out in the back, it is even more crazy loud on the inside of this car. So getting in-car footage has always been a problem for me in this car. And if you do YouTube, that can be a bit of a problem. And the other issue that I've had is the fact that the back of the car squeaks really, really bad. The previous owner of this car installed aftermarket upper control arms back there. And unfortunately, while they're great for drag racing, they have always just squeaked like crazy. So when you're driving this car around, just kind of normal driving, all you hear is just kind of squeaky, and it will absolutely drive you up a wall. But there is no denying this thing is a missile. Another comment that I got a fair amount was, why would you downgrade to a Mustang GT and sell your amazing, really special Hellcat? Well, as I mentioned, there's a couple of different ways to look at it because both cars are really fast in their own right. Certainly the Mustang had more potential to be fast had I thrown more stuff at it, but it really wasn't in the cards, and I just really wasn't willing to do that with a car that I daily drove, at least at the time. So I don't necessarily regret going to the Mustang, and as I mentioned before, I'm trying to grow a YouTube channel, which means I need to diversify my content to a degree, because if you only do one specific niche, one specific brand, you really are cutting yourself off at the knees in terms of how big your channel will grow. There's only so many Mopar people out there. Yes, I realize it's a fairly big number. I'm now approaching 190,000 subscribers, and I feel like it is important to kind of branch out, do different things for the channel, show you guys things that you haven't seen before. Does that mean I'm going to go away from Mopar content? Absolutely not. Most of you guys know my current car, my twin turbo Mustang, is for sale right now so that I can make room for the Demon 170. And now, of course, we're going to get right back to drag racing and do a lot of fun stuff with that car. But I also need to get out there and do something else for the channel that is non-Mopar related, because I do want to continue to see this channel grow. And it is really important that I give you guys diverse content and maybe an overall appreciation for other makes and models. Full transparency, I never really expected the twin turbo Mustang to be a home run type car for the channel. I didn't think it was going to be a game changer or make my channel really blow up. I was really just looking for some consistent content, something different than what I had done before, and it most definitely did that. And everything has kind of come full circle, and now it is time to move on to something new. After all, the S550 Mustang has been out there since 2015, and there has been so much content on the car, whether it's twin turbo content, naturally aspirated stuff, Pro Charge cars, Whipple cars. I mean, it's all been done before. And if I'm really going to make a difference on the channel, I need to move to a new platform, which is why you guys saw me order 2 new cars for the channel, the Dodge Demon 170, and of course the new S650 Mustang, the Dark Horse. Now, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to get the Dark Horse just yet, because I'm definitely trying to get the Demon. That is like priority number 1, because I do want to get back to drag racing and having fun. But like I said, this was more just steady growth for the channel, and I wanted to see if it worked out, and I am not unhappy at all with the results. Can I see your ball for a second? Can I see it? Let me see. Let me see. Okay, there you go. So to address a lot of the Mopar guys out there that were all bent out of shape because I did anything but drive just a Mopar, sorry guys, it is what it is. I mean, I'm trying to grow a channel here. Hopefully you guys can understand that. Stick with me. If you don't want to watch the other stuff that I put out there, you're certainly welcome to just watch my Mopar content. But it is a little bit weird that you get really upset if it's anything but Mopar or anything but Mustang or anything but Camaro or whatever else. It is a wide world of enthusiasts out there, of different things to appreciate with the different makes of the cars. And I just want to show you guys all sorts of fun stuff. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Are you guys really upset that I went to the Mustang, or did you find it pretty cool that I tried to branch off and do something different? I would love to hear it in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one. So until then, RacerX.